He believes in the three I's. He wants to move fast, forward, but realistically. The question, therefore, is that that side, to me, has considered that the existing ASEAN way will not serve. So do they win? They're trying to put us in a position where we are saying the European Union is perfect and must be adopted blindly. And I think Timothy did this quite cleverly. Let me persuade you why Timothy is wrong. First, about diversity. The European Union and any future ASEAN Union should not aim to be monocultural. What we're talking about are secular agreements. Secular agreements about economic integration, about peace and security. Sociocultural understanding. It doesn't mean we all become Buddhists or Muslims or whatever. We keep our personal faiths. That principle of the marginal difference and of subsidiarity, bringing decisions down to the lowest possible level from the European Union experience, are very useful. The second part that both sides agree is that ASEAN must matter to businesses. And we're not just saying this because many of you are from businesses. How do the three I's work with this? Why is it that this is more of a union and integration rather than the existing ASEAN way? First, we agree on rules. Each state still has some rights to disagree. That's sovereignty. But once they agree, once the ratification happens, the present ASEAN way has no monitoring, no enforcement, and that's the weakness. Some agreement is made, but when you turn up at the customs office, you turn up the permission office, no permits are given to you. Your goods do not pass the border. Union, integration, monitoring, and enforcement, either sanctions or at least scoldings to the governments. This is critical. And this is a part that ASEAN both recognizes, but because of the nature of the game, wishes to ignore. Internal reform and integration. These go together. Of course, no one can make any country reform if they are unwilling to do so. Calling for ASEAN Union is not going to overnight change some outliers, let's say Myanmar, if they choose not to do so, the generals. But if a reform-minded government wants to open its economy, open its society, regional union are exactly the kind of anchors, the linchpins that will help them face their people and say, this is why we need to do it, this is why it's good, this is the way forward. There was questions about cronyism. Opening our markets will pressure cronies. One of the reasons why we don't become a union, we don't integrate, are not for good reasons of culture or personal conviction. It's to protect cronyism, to protect uncompetitive companies. We see every day that instead it's the Japanese and Western multinationals that are integrating our markets. Where are the ASEAN MNCs? Where are the ASEAN-based ASEAN companies? And that's what the dream of union can bring. I was asked a question about the haze. We just held a haze dialogue. Again, I want to convince you this is not a question of Indonesia against the rest. The first victims of the haze are the Indonesians themselves living in Pekanbaru, nearest the fires, or Kalimantan, etc. The rest of us get second-hand smoke. Indonesia should commit to the treaty because it's best for Indonesia. Indonesia loses the most money, Indonesians are most affected. If it commits to that treaty, which I hope it will, what then? The present ASEAN way is simply too soft. The next leader, the next change of direction, the next bump up in palm oil prices or whatever economy is driving the haze, they will forget about it. The dream of an ASEAN Union is not to force Indonesia to sign, but to say to Indonesia or any other state, once you have signed, there's a broader goal in mind. Let me conclude, my 5 minutes are up, by saying there are risks in going for the the ASEAN Union. I do not pretend the European Union is all good. But look at the risks on the other side. The risk of being uncompetitive economically. The risk of being unimportant politically. In these last years, we have negotiated economic and political agreements with what we call the ASEAN +1. ASEAN-Japan will now start. When we do so, and these one major powers, China, Japan, India, if they see ASEAN as 10 fractured people who cling on to diversity so much that we cannot come to a common position, a common policy in dealing with the external parties, This will be the political and economic end for ASEAN. Ambition is important. I agree with Kun Abisit that it must be realistic. But some of us must also put out a longer vision as to where the paths we take will eventually lead. And I think the proposition of an ASEAN Union within a broader East Asia is a guiding vision. Thank you.